things happened with that. I remember telling my brother about this book that I was reading and this idea that people could leave their body and, through a few different techniques, one becoming lucid in the dream state, and then just saying, oh, I'm awake in the dream. I want to leave my body now. And you could pop out, according to this book. And he was sort of laughing at me, believing that such a thing, like I was even entertaining such an idea. However, the lucid dreaming piece of my, explanation, he did recognize. As a kid, he had lucid dreams where he became awake in the dream state. So he's like, I don't know about this out of body thing. That seems pretty ridiculous, but becoming awake and aware in the dream state, I did that as a little kid. I remember doing that. So that is a thing. And then by talking about it, it triggered it happening for him again.
Hello, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on For Soul Illumination with my new friend, Brandon Beachum. Hi, Brandon. How are you?
Hello, hello. How are you, Kathy?
Great, great. I'm so glad to get to know you and to experience your perspective on the human possibility, the human journey, and how we have golden keys.
We both have our golden keys here. I have
Yeah.
my book. You have your actual golden key.
Yeah. Well, I do have your PDF. I did buy your PDF. So, but I want people to understand a little bit about you and how you got inspired to write this book and share this information. So for people that are just getting to know you, could you share a little bit about your journey, please?
Sure. Yeah. So I was raised on the East Coast in Virginia. I currently reside in California. But yeah, I had I guess, as typical of an upbringing as one could hope for, if normal is such a thing. And things happen with that. I remember telling my brother about this book that I was reading and this idea that people could leave their body and, through a few different techniques, one becoming lucid in the dream state, and then just saying, oh, I'm awake in the dream. I want to leave my body now. And you could pop out, according to this book. And he was sort of laughing at me, believing that such a thing, like I was even entertaining such an idea. However, the lucid dreaming piece of my, explanation, he did recognize. As a kid, he had lucid dreams where he became awake in the dream state. So he's like, I don't know about this out of body thing. That seems pretty ridiculous, but becoming awake and aware in the dream state, I did that as a little kid. I remember doing that. So that is a thing. And then by talking about it, it triggered it happening for him again. So he went from one day sort of making fun of me, believing that you could have an out-of-body experience, to the next day, coming in my room in the morning looking like he'd seen a ghost, saying, oh my gosh, I became lucid in my dream because we talked about it. And then I remembered your instruction to say, hey, I just want to pop out of my body. And it happened. And next thing I know, I'm standing next to my body, looking at it. I fly through the ceiling. It's, this intense, hyper realistic experience. And so that was really cool validation for me, obviously, as I'm exploring some of these concepts, to have someone, so close to me who definitely wasn't, trying to feed me a line of BS, go from sort of skepticism to having an experience. So that really was kind of helped solidify that, oh, wow, there is a lot more going on here. And from there, it just kind of took off. I continued reading things, such as at this time, this is mid-90s, like Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh is an example of books that were very influential. And I was blessed to have him as an interviewee on my podcast, Positive Head, recently. And that was cool, for full circle moment for me to have Neil Donald Walsh on. But yeah, those books and things like it, I can only imagine, Kathy, because it is my dharmic path to I've done 2,300 podcasts on this topic at this point, and written a book and sort of talked about this stuff for a long time now. Because it is my dharmic path, I can only imagine it is why when I started being exposed to it, it was so profound, and I, was just so lit up about the topic and the idea that we're one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. And would, it's that remembering, I think, is just like, oh my gosh, of course this is the way it's structured. It makes so much sense. It's so simple yet so profound and complex simultaneously. And like I said, I can only imagine, because of my who I'm meant to be, that it just lit me up, and I was so excited. And for many years I would just talk to anyone who would listen about it. And finally, if you listen to episode 1 of the Positive Head podcast, I say, like, my poor friends and family have, ears have been bleeding hearing me talk about this stuff for so long. I needed another outlet. And so, that was 2015. And here we are all these years later, and still talking to anyone who will listen about the topic, and just very, very passionate and about the results it's helped me achieve in my own life, and what I've seen in others as well.
That's what I'm so excited about. I love the idea that there's so many people from so many different perspectives talking about human potential in a different way. This isn't an opportunity to spend the rest of your life taking a course, hoping to perfect it. This is about opening the door to who you really are,
Yeah.
and enjoying that journey where there's so much positive energy, like the juice of you being a little kid and, oh boy, a new toy kind of
Yep.
feeling.
Yep.
So, and I wanted to share, I did the marketing plan for Humanities Team, which was started by Neil Donald Walsh. So
Oh,
I've been
cool.
with him multiple times. That was over 10 years ago. And I don't know if you're familiar with Humanities Team, but you'd like Steve Farrell too. I could introduce you. But
Cool.
yeah, the idea of this opportunity today is for you to talk about reality crafting, because what I see of your journey, I mean, you're a serial entrepreneur, you're an author, you've done a gazillion podcasts, you're fueled by this enthusiasm for life.
Yeah.
And it's fearless. And I think that we're going through a time period right now where people it's almost like it's a wave of I'm happy and feeling great, and then fearful and happy. It's like you connect when you do your meditation in the morning, and
Yeah.
then yikes, humanity,
Yeah.
3D hits.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about that? Because your capacity, I don't know if it's the fact that you have a practice and you're very disciplined, or if your mindset changed, but you have a capacity to focus and to energize your positive creations. And I think everyone right now needs to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's great to hear that, your perspective on it, because of course we all have our inner critic as well, right? About how much better we could do or should do. And, in this world of social media and numbers, and how many followers do you have, and how many likes do you have, and how many listens and downloads, and numbers never end. And so I think it's important that we don't get too caught up on that sort of thing, and understanding that we're all unique emanations of source and on our own unique journey. So, comparing yourself is not really a good idea, because there's only one you, and you have your own trajectory and course. And what I found is, I've had I've had great success in certain things, and I've had more failure, to be honest. And then it's like, okay, well, what is failure? That I say that word loosely, because really any quote unquote failure is really just teaching you, you're learning what you need to know next. And it's, you know, even successful entrepreneurs and stuff, they say, fail often and quickly and learn and move on, and I think it's easy to fall into the trap of, oh my gosh, if you have a string of, tougher luck, more failure, to then start to, you got to be really careful not to start telling the story of, well, okay, I can't do it. I'm not capable. It only takes one to be right once or to win once, and all of a sudden, you're a genius to everyone. So it's a very interesting dance, and I think that's an important piece of it. Yeah, I've had some cool things manifest, and some things manifest that I wish it went differently. And the most important thing is to be grateful and blessed for what I do have and what has happened. And like we talked about at the beginning of the show, health is your ultimate wealth. And if you have that, what a success. And so I think it's really, really important to keep things in perspective and understand you haven't if you haven't had that big breakthrough moment for yourself, it's just because it hasn't arrived yet. And as long as you continue to tell the story of all the challenges on the way, are nothing more than fertilizer for the growth that it wants to happen. And you can't have a beautiful oak tree without it, the acorn being buried deep in the dark soil, right? And so it's a part of the equation that people leave out and forget about oftentimes, or judge as if it were a negative thing. You did something wrong. You're not right. You're off. And really, you need the fertilizer. And we all know what the best fertilizer is, right? And so you need that in your life in order for the growth to emerge from. And so I think that's a really important piece when you're analyzing your journey. If you've had a lot of that, then congratulations, something really beautiful is gonna sprout from it.
So you're talking about self-talk right there. And are you suggesting that a lot of this opportunity is your inner journey work? Is that how you'd like to share?
Yeah, it really, I'd say we all only have one job in common. I guess the extension of that internal job can look very different from person to person. But the one job that we all have in common, root job, is to manage our vibration, right? And to understand there is no out there out there. Everything out there is happening as a reflection of your internal work and internal state. So that's the good news. A lot of people get stuck in a situation where, like, oh my gosh, I'm pinned against a wall. I don't see a way out. I've got to pay the bills in order to keep the roof over the head. I got to pay for the car in order to get to the job, to get, to get me to work and pay for the kids, school, whatever the story is. And it can look like a trap sometimes. Like, there is no wiggle room here. And when you start to think like Wayne Dyer did, for example, is like, I'm realistic, I expect miracles. And you start telling a story, a story that is serving around it, and understanding that, like, you're perfectly positioned to change your situation, because every situation is starting from right where you sit in that internal state. And I've often said the only thing I'm really any good at is telling good stories about myself. And that has really served me, because reality is shifting to that story. And yeah, I have moments where I don't tell a great story too, by the way. That's part of it as well. Is like, really, I think a lot of it, a lot, even for me in the last couple of years, has been, you know, shadow stuff that I didn't even necessarily realize is there, coming up to the surface, because it wants to be brought to the light. It's those murky shadows that are holding back the next level of growth. So once again, I think it's easy to think, oh, negative things are coming up, or darker things, or shadowy things are coming up, and therefore I must be off. It's like, no, that's coming up because you're ready to process. Even with your body, you can have issues. I was having some skin related issues, and I was talking to someone about it, and they were like, oh, well, it's actually a good thing when the skin's flaring. That's because it's gotten to the point where all the rest of the system is healthy enough that it says, oh, I can deal with this now too. So let's put those toxins out. Like, it's sort of fifth down on the list of priority, right? And because you're at a point where your system can handle it, now it's going to go on to that work. And I think it's a good way to think about it with ourselves as well. Like, oh, this is coming up because you're solid enough with the more fundamental things that keep you alive to now process some of these maybe more nuanced things that you didn't even know were there oftentimes.
Yes, I agree. And I think that what we're seeing right now is humanity, because we're such a global arena now and global consciousness,
Yeah.
that we're seeing humanity working on their shadow.
Yeah.
And for those of us, I'm highly sensitive, I assume you are too. You can almost feel it. You wake up in the morning and go, something happened almost in the field. And that's an opportunity to feel it, really process it,
Yeah.
rather than stuff it, because we were taught to stuff it.
Yep.
I mean, it was like,
For sure.
whatever, the show must go on, just do
Right.
whatever, right? Especially as a business owner, it was always, I'll worry about it later, let's take care of this. But what you're talking about is creating your reality from your inner self, which is an opportunity to see what's still there that needs to be cleared, cleaned,
Yep.
processed, and relinquished, because you aren't that story, you aren't that program, right?
Yep. Right. Right. Exactly. And it's like, it's very empowering to understand, like, once again, it's so easy to look at the external world and feel backed into a corner, or like, and the amount that one of the blessings of having interviewed and talked to so many luminaries and sort of spiritually minded magical authors and philosophers and teachers and scientists over the decade almost on with Positive Head podcast is the amount of magical stories that I've heard about someone manifesting what it is that they needed or wanted in a way that just defies rational logic, at how to get there, right? And so I think you know, that is a very empowering thing to understand. If I can spend the time doing the inner work, and whether it's the meditation practice, the visualization practice, there's so many things that you can do, but making the time for that sort of work, it's my partner, she does candle magic. She does these whole ritualistic, and it's really, it's like it's setting an intention and putting energy into this candle with a visualization and affirmations, and it's by giving a story and energy to it. We're That's how magic is done, right? And it's you are the magic. You can choose any sort of way or outlet that you want. You can focus on, there's people who get caught up on crystals like what I'm holding here, or there's so many, they're just tools and props, but really it's about you and your focus and your intention setting, and finding something that really aligns as a technique for you to continue to um, hone your inner self, and to make it like a super sharp blade that is consistent regardless of external circumstances.
Right. Well, the thing is everything is an opportunity to see and to grow and to see where your triggers still are. But
Right.
but I think you hit the nail on the head just then when you talked about what you intend.
Yeah.
Because before you're talking about self-talk, that's an intention. What you consume, whether you're listening to high frequency tones, and there's tons of free stuff on YouTube,
Yep.
or there's stuff to buy that you can gain your confidence, you can get your focus,
Yep.
or it's about being empowered with that intention, because we are creating everything in our world. And
Yeah.
I think people forgot. I
Yep.
think that's part of the gift that your book is giving people, is a way for them to look at the idea of creating their own reality from transmuting fear, looking at what reality really is, and then picking. Your book has these wonderful keys, 8 keys to abundance. So
Yeah.
why don't we talk a little bit about that? Because if you have abundance, it seems like your Maslow's hierarchy of needs part is met. You have a chance to be self-actualized. But if you don't have abundance, or if you have a lot of fear about the reality you're seeing, you're looking through that lens
Yeah.
on reality.
Yep.
These 8 keys could really help people. So
Yeah. 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 And I'm happy to also even gift the book, the audio and or ebook. I can tell people, well, if you want, I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. If you go to goldenkey.gift and use the code LOVE at checkout, LOVE, you can get the audio and or ebook. And the Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. And this is really my 25 years of deep exploration of the ultimate nature of reality, sort of condensed into 100 pages to read, about 3 hours to listen to. And yeah, I just kind of like you said, Kathy, is I just sort of came up. Okay, what are the keys that I found to unlocking abundance? And I sort of have come up with 8 keys in the book that are sort of fundamental. And of course, a lot of times people get caught up on abundance as thinking of something monetary, which certainly is one form of abundance. But I wouldn't even say the most important. As we've already talked about, health is the ultimate wealth. And there's so many forms of abundance that we want in require in our lives in order to have the most fulfilling life possible. And so understanding that abundance is your birthright, it is the quintessence of your being. You are abundance. You are one with the abundance of this whole planet, of this whole cosmos, even beyond the physical, right? You are it. It is you. And so how much of that other extended part of yourself are you allowing to flow in is really the question. Is the faucet turned on or is the faucet turned off? And so understanding and remembering that it is nothing but an extension, more than an extension of ourselves, is so powerful and potent. And of course, it's one thing to understand it, you know, um, mentally, idealistically, and it's another thing to live it, right? And that's really what the book is about. Is here's how I've crafted my own relationship with abundance and learning how to call it in. And it's a daily conscious effort. I still have my own ups and downs with the whole journey. It's like, sometimes we teach best what we most need to learn. And so it's a dance that we're all experiencing and learning and going through. And I think when you can really tap into feeling the truth of the situation, that everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself. Like it's all an
perfect.
extension of you, right? So
Yes.
any abundance you can imagine or think of or see, it's like it's reflecting you back to you in some way, shape, or form.
Right,
And I think
right.
as you start to, instead of, it's easy for people to like, oh, I see this influencer or this person and they have this and I don't, and I could never be that. It's like, no, you're actually seeing it in your field out of all the infinite things that could be in your field, because it is such a close vibrational match. That which is like unto itself is drawn. So um it's
Yep, I wanted to show the place that people can get your free gift, and
yes.
so that you have a visual, everyone, so that you know that this is what an incredible, generous soul you are, to do all of these recordings and then to also give a free book.
Mm.
And you must really have a mission to help as many people as possible. I
Well,
really
I call it the good kind of selfish, because it's like Gandhi said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others.
Yep,
And the
that I
reason I
agree.
believe that holds true is because there are no others. Like we're
Right.
literally always giving whatever I give to you, I'm giving to me, and therefore I'll feel the
Exactly.
energetic repercussions of that. So I think all of our highest path involves service in some way for that reason. Because
Yes,
as St. Francis of Assisi said, it's in giving that we receive, right? And
exactly.
so,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, I wanted to make sure it's goldenkey.gift is where you
correct.
go. So
Yep.
want to make sure people see that. So I'll stop sharing there. But and that's kind of cool how you have that thing keep changing.
Yeah. I had a great designer who helped with the website and everything.
Yeah, yeah. So we're in a period of high change, and some of us, like it sounds like you and me, love change. We like to mix it up. We like to create new things and learn new things, and that's why we do these shows and why we do what we do. But what would you say to somebody who is frightened of this time of change? I mean,
Mm,
in my world, I think we stood in lines to get these bodies to be here right now, and we won the lottery, but not
yeah.
everyone kind of feels like that. So do you have any suggestions? Because your book will give people a way to find new ways of thinking about this reality so that they can have more joyful life. But they have to not be afraid to implement.
Yeah.
So could you talk about that? Because I think that could really help a lot of people here.
Yeah, certainly. One of my favorite quotes is by Terence McKenna. Not sure if you're familiar with Terence McKenna. I'm actually looking for it right now, seeing if I can locate it. Here, I have a copy of the book pulled up, and I really need to memorize it because it's like my favorite quote of all time. But it really speaks to this quite well, and it's well, here's another one. Chogyam Trungpa said, "The bad news is you're falling through the air, nothing to hang on to, no parachute. The good news is there's no ground." And so when you understand that you are, you're floating in eternity right now, and you know, you can't you can't lose whatever it is you don't want to have happen. The good news is change is guaranteed, right? So should something arise that you're fearful of, guess what? It cannot last. It will not last. Guaranteed. That's one thing we know. Everything is moving and changing all the time. And if there's something that you love that, you don't really want to lose, okay, great. This is why you should bring radical appreciation to it. So it's going to change, right? If you don't like it, it's going to change. If you love it, that's going to change too. So be fully present and receive it, while it's there. And so I think people who have fear about, what's happening on the planet and um, that sort of thing, it's sort of judging. It's a little bit like I was saying earlier. To the acorn buried deep in the ground, it can look rough. To the butterfly, right? For the butterfly to exist, this is something I talk about in the book. It starts out as a caterpillar that will eat anything in its path. I was telling my mother about when I was writing this in the book, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I know exactly what you mean. These stupid caterpillars keep destroying my geraniums or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're destroying with reckless abandon, right?" And then all of a sudden, a cell pops up within the caterpillar that is foreign, doesn't belong there to the caterpillar system. They call it an imaginal cell, and it sees this imaginal cell, and it's like invader, kill it, and the caterpillar cells do that. And then another imaginal cell pops up, and then another, and ultimately they enough come up and they start working together, and it shifts the tide within the caterpillar. And this is when the caterpillar's really life is in chaos. It goes into the chrysalis, and the caterpillar cells basically dissolve into a goo, right? And this whole transformation is happening. And the imaginal cells, which carry the code of the butterfly, right, actually consume the caterpillar cells. It's fuel All that pain that the caterpillar precipitated becomes fuel for the butterfly in the imaginal cells, and then the butterfly is born out of that, right? And that's what you have to understand is I love that comparing that metaphor to as a metaphor for humanity. What we've seen imaginal cells pop up, these luminaries, and boom, they've been stamped out. Kill them. They're talking, Jesus is an example. He was just saying, I am God, I am one with source. Like, kill him, stamp him out. Oh, but then more. Now here we are years and years and thousands of years later, and we're having a podcast about this with no problem, and many others are, and saying basically the same things, and so and we're working together. And so yes, the old system will crumble. It needs to crumble in order for the butterfly of humanity to be born. But that's not something to fear. That's something to be excited about. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't, but if you energetically are aligned with the imaginal cells, the imaginal cell has a lot better time of it, than the caterpillar does from a certain perspective. So, I think that's an important thing to do. You're falling, no parachute, nothing to hold on to. You're literally floating in eternity right now. The good news is there's no ground, change is guaranteed. And if you're listening to this, you are an imaginal cell. So that's a good place to be in the story. So, just trust. One of the keys in the book is trust the mystery. And so learning to trust the process is vital.
Perfect. Yeah, trust is a huge thing, and it's been really on the forefront for the past 4 years, really strongly, that that this reality that we have right now is in motion to change, and the inequities that we've seen for the past thousands of years are hopefully going to be a thing of the past. I read a thing that said something about someday we'll be seeing us as the transformational generation, not an X or a Y or anything. And then people will wonder how we survived it and how we did it. And this is your book and your work is how we're going to survive and thrive in it, because we're becoming empowered to a new way of thinking that leaves the programs behind that we were imprinted on by society and by our cultures. Whether you're a mother, father, whatever your son, or boss, and you have to be this kind of boss versus a servant leader. There's all these roles that we've taken on that don't really serve and aren't full of love. So that's one of the things that I think your book and your work really do. One other thing I wanted to ask, though, is about your implementation of this work, because there's so much stuff out, but people can listen, and they might absorb some of the frequency of it and be shifted in the energy of it. But do you have recommendations of how they could implement it into their life?
Yeah, great question. I think, like you said, anyone tuning into this podcast, for example, it's a vibrational offering. It's a vibrational frequency, and you are sort of swimming in the vibrational pool of these insights, information, perspectives, and then you're feeling it, right? If you've been listening this whole time, you're feeling a certain vibrational pool, and you're resonating. It's like, if I was holding a guitar right now and you were holding a guitar and I plucked one of the strings, the one that's in resonance would vibrate, as well. And so that's really what we're, vibrational beings. So that's exactly what we're doing all the time. So listening to things like this, doing a guided meditation on, on YouTube, like you said, there's so much stuff, or, Positive Head podcast you pulled up. I mean, there's literally, I don't even know how many hours, 2,300 episodes. So there's a lot there that you can listen to. And so just finding a practice that works for you, if it's just, even if it's just 10 minutes a day of meditation. I think the intention of making that time, I think it was Osho that said everyone should meditate at least 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, you should meditate for an hour. And it's because what he was getting at is like, if you're really in the rat race and really sort of, caught up in I don't have enough time, realizing that you can make the time, and doing that really sends a message to the universe that, of what you're capable of. And it's, Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this, changing those habits and those well-worn grooves that you're in really opens up all kinds of possibility. If I'm going from California where I'm at to, Virginia where I'm from, it's almost a straight line, but if I shift, 3 degrees to the north, I end up in Maine by the time I go completely across. It seems like such a small shift, but over time it adds up, right? And so it's really about learning to just doing something different that is in line with what you want to see more of, and that will grow.
Right. And the benefits and the results are the impetus to do more.
Yeah,
Because the more that you're in love with this whole creation and in love with everything around it and in appreciation, this is more than even gratitude, the appreciation of everything in your field. And if you don't like it, changing it, being
Yep.
empowered.
Yep.
That's what we're hoping everyone will do. They'll be empowered and go to your website and get the book. They'll start listening to Positive Head podcasts and start to get their daily feel good inspiration so that they can really make this world feel confident to show up as their genius, because
Yeah.
I believe everyone is here for a divine purpose. And we need you all right now,
Yeah.
where the more people that are grounded and able to do problem solving during this time, creative, loving problem solving, and releasing the win-lose
Yeah.
model,
Yeah.
the better.
Agreed.
So thank you, Brandon, so much for everything you do. And
Mm.
is there anything else that you'd like to leave our guests with as far as
No, I think we've said most everything. I think the most, important thing is for people to realize that, there is no being in all of eternity that has been more worthy than you are. You are one with all of it. So there's no way that you're less worthy because there's no other, right? And so understanding that and realizing if it isn't over if you haven't won, and anything that you've had hardship wise, anything that anything leading up to this moment, I'm sure there's people listening who have had a real tough go at it. Congratulations, because that is the fertilizer in order for you to sprout forth from. And it is necessary and by divine design. And so, the harder your path, the greater your sort of, destiny, I would say. And
right?
so realizing every moment's another chance to turn it all around. And most important thing is this: how can you tell a new story about your past so that it then can become the fuel? It's like abracadabra translates to I create as I speak, and you're constantly spelling with your words. You're you're
Yep.
you're you're casting a spell. Your words are your wands, right? And so start telling a new story about how all the things transpired and why, and see how then that plays out on the other side of what you experience. The universe is just responding to you. Oh, is that what it was for? Oh, is that why it happened? Oh, okay. Why didn't you say so? Here you go. Let's reflect that. Because you are the creator and created rolled into one, and the creator creates with its words, beliefs, actions, energy, vibration, and that is your job. That is your only job. And if you're listening to this and in a vibrational match to hear this, that's because you're ready to do more of it and get better at it. And so, you're in a really good spot
Yeah.
despite any past, whatever. It's,
Uh, Well, I thank you so much. I feel like I found a family member, a soul
Oh,
family
for
member.
sure.
Thank you so much. And everyone, please share this so that more people can get the benefit of Brandon's work. And also please subscribe if you haven't already, because this is the message. This is the empowerment. You are so much more powerful than you know. And this could be the step to having you realize that and go for it. So thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to connect and share, and all of you out there for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts to this
Yeah,
episode.
great. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.